this would be something really useful at the next pry. But sadly, mutations in real life is not this cool. So what is a mutation actually? Whenever there's a change in the structure of a gene or rearrangement of a larger section of genes or chromosomes, we say that a mutation has occurred. Now, these mutations usually occur during cell division, either during mitosis or meiosis. Remember the whole DNA unwinding and unzipping in order to replicate? And then the whole process of metaphase, anaphase, all those things. During all this commotion of the copying of the DNA, anything can go wrong. Sometimes the mistake is really small, sometimes the mistake can be really serious. A lot of times, mutations occur during meiosis, during the formation of an egg and a sperm. The problem with this is that when that egg and that sperm unite, the resulting zygote receives faulty DNA from the parents, and the child that grows up from this fertilized egg will actually have this mutation in each of their cells. Now, mutations can either be small, like I said, where there's just a change in some of the base pairs on a gene. That's what we call a genetic mutation. Or it could be a major difference or change in the amount of chromosomes, and that's what we call a chromosomal mutation. At the top of this diagram, there's a section of DNA that is normal. So take note that there's 4 amino acids, and have a look at the DNA sequence. That's the normal DNA chain. But now, the thing is with a mutation is that there's 3 possible things that can go wrong in a genetic mutation. At the second DNA strand, you'll see the word substitution. A substitution mutation is an example of a point mutation, and that occurs when a single base pair or nucleotide in the DNA strand is substituted with another one. So the number of the base pairs remain the same, one just gets swapped with another one, which is not supposed to be there. The 2 strands at the bottom of this diagram, labeled insertion and deletion, are examples of frame shift mutations. And these occur when a base pair are either inserted or removed. So the number of base pairs in the DNA strand will change. Insertion is when the DNA strand will actually become longer since extra bases are inserted or added somewhere along the strand. And then obviously a deletion mutation will take place when the DNA strand becomes shorter because some of the base pairs were removed. Like in this case, where you can see that the blue section of the chromosome has actually been left out. So the chromosome becomes shorter. Now, mutations can actually either be harmful or useful, but often just neutral. So do you remember this diagram? We looked at it when we did protein synthesis. And when we look at it again and we consider mutations, we realize that the problem is that when we have a genetic mutation occurring in the DNA sequence, both transcription and translation will be affected. Since a mutation changes the number or the order of the base pairs in the DNA, the resulting mRNA will have a different sequence. That means the codons on the mRNA is different to what it's supposed to be. And that means that when these codons are translated at the ribosomes, you'll have different tRNAs used to assemble the amino acid chain. So either a completely different protein is going to be made, or what usually happens is that that intended protein is not made at all. So let's look at some actual examples of human mutations. A neutral mutation can be seen in people's earlobes either being attached or loose. Now, a change in DNA causes this, but it's not particularly useful or harmful. Sickle cell anemia is another example of a point mutation where one base is substituted with another. Now, this is a harmful mutation. The result is that hemoglobin, the protein that oxygen is supposed to be carried on in the red blood cells, is not produced correctly. So sufferers with this genetic disease have severe symptoms, including pain and chronic exhaustion and lack of energy, because their red blood cells cannot transport oxygen adequately to the cells. This young boy suffers from a condition called progeria, and it's a genetic disorder that is very rare but also very severe. It's quite sad, and you might have heard about it or seen people on TV like this, and it's a disease that causes accelerated aging. So it's a point mutation in a gene that's supposed to create proteins that support the cell nucleus, which means you have baldness too soon, bone abnormalities, growth impairment, and a person actually just ages too fast. There is no cure and really no successful treatment either, and these children have such a limited life expectancy. Cystic fibrosis is another harmful condition which is caused by the deletion of 3 bases in the DNA strand. The result is that the body cannot produce normal mucus. It produces a thick, sticky mucus that clogs to the lungs and blocks the ducts of the digestive system. Cystic fibrosis cannot be cured, and although treatment lessens the symptoms, sufferers still will have a life expectancy that is limited. Now, this is one of the weirdest ones to me. It's a condition called hypertrichosis. In other words, people that have this have excessive hair growth in places that normal people don't. Studies have implicated that a rearrangement of chromosome 8 into a different position is going to mess up how the different chromosomes communicate with one another. And then you've got hair follicles all over the body that in normal people are not there. So as mentioned before, genetic mutations can actually be inherited from a parent, or the mutation can be acquired in one's lifetime. It will be present in only certain cells and not every cell of the body. These mutations can be caused by environmental factors or chemical substances. Another factor, or rather any factor or substance that causes a change in the genes or shape of the DNA is called a mutagen. Examples are UV rays, like changing the DNA causing skin cancer. Then we also have more than 7,000 different chemicals in cigarette smoke that interferes with DNA replication in the alveolar cells and cause lung cancer. Exposure to X-rays and nuclear waste also cause various horrible mutations like cancers and even growth defects. Useful mutations are very rare, obviously, but the only one that you basically find when you start Googling around is the one where people, well, not even 1 person in 10 billion people are resistant to HIV. Now, that would be a really beneficial mutation if the whole population had that. The mutation involves the absence of the CCR5 co-receptor on the human cell membrane. This means that the virus, the HIV virus, is not able to bond to the surface of the cell, which means it cannot reproduce in your cells, making the person immune. You can't get it. So, sadly, you're not going to grow wings and you're not going to throw fireballs.